All right, we're looking at our next section, 13.5 on the law of sines. Now, this should be a review from geometry. You cover law of sines and law of cosines last year, so it should look pretty familiar. So we'll jump right into the law itself. So this is going to be useful when we're trying to solve triangles that are not right triangles. So this law of sines applies to any triangle. And it says if you have the triangle A, B, and C with the vertices A, B, and C there, the law of sines states that sine of angle A over side A is equal to sine of angle B over side B, and then that's equal to sine of angle C over the side C. So that ratio is the same for all three sides. And then the nice thing about the law of sines is you can flip the whole thing over. So you could write A over sine of A equals B over sine of B equals C over sine of C. So we're going to use this law to try and solve a triangle. And solving a triangle means figuring out all of the missing measurements, the missing angles and the missing side lengths. So we're going to do example 2. We're going to skip over the area of the triangle for this section. We're just going to go to using the law of sines itself. So example 2, solve the triangle, round to the nearest tenth. So right now what we have is this triangle SRT, and it gives us one of the side lengths. Here it's giving us side S. I know it's S because it's across from that angle. And then it's also giving us angle S, 40 degrees, and angle R is 49 degrees. So what we need to do is figure out the missing angle down here of T, and then the side lengths T and R. So when you're given two angles and you need to find a third, this is probably the most straightforward measurement to solve for, because we know that the angles of a triangle add up to be 180 degrees. So since we have two of them, this last one, angle T, needs to be the missing amount to add up to be 180. So let's take 40 and we'll add 49. We get 89. So then I'm going to go 180 minus 89. And that's going to leave us with 91. So that is our angle T. There's the first of our three answers. So now let's try and find, let's go ahead and do side T. So I want to solve for this side. Now in the book, when they go through this example, they use this first version of the law of sines where you have the sine of A, sine of B, and sine C on top of the fractions. And you can use that. It walks you through the steps there. I like to put whatever I'm trying to solve for on the top of my fraction. It saves me like a step or so. I think it's just a little bit easier to organize it that way. So if I'm trying to solve for T, then I'm going to put T over sine of angle T, which I know is 91 degrees. 91 degrees. And then I'm going to set that equal to either S over sine of S or R over sine of R. And it doesn't matter which one as long as you know those measurements. Right now, we know side S. We don't know side R, so I can't really use that to help me solve for T. I want to set up an equation where there's only one unknown quantity, only one thing I can solve for. So I'm going to use angle S and side S. So I'm going to put 20 over sine of 40. And now that's my equation. T over sine of 91 equals 20 over sine of 40. I don't need to, set up the law of sines with three things here. I just need to use two. You don't have to use, A, B, and C. You should just be using two parts of that formula. So if I want to solve for T, I need to get rid of this sine of 91. So I'm going to multiply by sine of 91 on both sides to cancel that. So that's going to multiply by my 20. So T is equal to 20 sine of 91 over sine of 40. And then we're going to use our calculator to help us calculate that. When you're using trig functions, you need to make sure you're in the right mode. So up here next to our second button, you can see mode. We're going to hit that. And we are typing in degrees here. We're not using radians. So on mine, it's the third option down. I can choose either radians or degrees. I want to be in degrees. So make sure that when you're doing these problems, your calculator is in degrees as well. All right, let's exit out of that. So I'm going to type in 20 times sine of 91 divided by sine of 40. You do want to be careful with order of operations. With this, it's going to multiply those two things first and then divide, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to multiply those two, multiply the numerator first and then divide by sine of 40. If I was being extra careful, and this is something you definitely want to do if you have two things in the denominator, you could put both the numerator and denominator in their own set of parentheses. So I could put everything on top in a set of parentheses, and then I just have the one thing on bottom, so I'll just put sine of 40 down there. Hit enter, and there is our side length, 31, and it says rounded to nearest tenth, so that's going to stay as 31.1. Okay. Now we need to find r, and we're going to set it up the same way. So r over sine of angle r, which is 49, is equal to, and we'll use this same ratio, 20 over sine of 40. And now we take sine of 49, we multiply it up here on top, so we get r is equal to 20 sine of 49 over sine of 40. All right. That's almost the same exact thing that we just typed in for the last problem. The only difference is that instead of 91, it is 49. So what I'm going to do is, on my calculator, I can hit second enter, and it just brings up the last thing I typed in. And you might have a similar feature on yours. If you have the same exact calculator, it'd be the same buttons. Just hit second and enter. And then I can go back and edit what I just typed in. So I'm going to hit 20 sine of 49 over sine of 40, hit enter, and r is equal to 23 points. We got 4/8, so we're going to round that up to 23.5. And there is our answer.